Welcome back, everybody. Today we're getting into the Optic that you see in my hands right now that you saw on a couple different rifles throughout the intro, and that probably a ton of you have seen on my Facebook and Instagram page over the last 6 months because we've had it in for that long. It is the Trijicon MRO with green dot. Now the green dot is new for 2018. I believe they announced it at SHOT this year. I didn't go, but I believe they did. I first played with one at NRA show, and that's when I requested one, and Trijicon did send this out for the review, just so you guys know that. But we've been using it pretty much every week, a couple times a week, range sessions throughout that time, have thousands of rounds through rifles with this optic on it, and we've had zero issues in terms of performance. Now, why would you want a green dot versus a red dot? Well, you might not, you might. There's a lot of science behind it, and if you do any research into the topic, you guys are going to see that most people, well over 90% of people, see green better than red in various lighting conditions. That includes in optics. It's particularly different in bright sunlight. So if you're out in like a really bright desert area or something like that, the human eye picks up green better than red. It's just how it is. Now again, that's for the majority of people. Now there are people who that's not the case, particularly colorblind people. They don't notice a difference. However, one thing to think about as well is that a lot of us are sort of hardwired within our brains to pick up red dots, right? So you bring a rifle up, you require your sights, and what are you looking for? You're looking for a dot to superimpose over the actual thing that you want to impact with a bullet. So again, a lot of us have done that thousands and thousands of times, and initially the green dot might not be picked up as fast as a red dot simply because of your neuroscience and neurowiring, I suppose. So pros and cons there to green dots, but if you've never used anything before, I do want to bet most people will prefer green. I've said it for years when I do ACOG reviews that I tend to prefer the green illuminated reticles. I just like them. I think they're easier and they contrast better with most things. And saying that, I live in the Carolinas where there's woods and green trees everywhere. I still think that. So that's kind of my take on green anyway. So what we're going to do next is let the dogs take a look at it, then get into the details of the optic, compare it to a couple of options, and then at the end we'll let you know what we think of it overall. Now that the dogs have blessed off on it, I wanted to go over some of the details of the optic itself. First off, it's 2.6 inches long. It weighs in at 4.1 ounces on my scale, actually just under. That's without the mount, but with the battery in there that we'll get to here in just a second. Obviously, this one has a 2 MOA green dot, and it has a infinite eye relief as a red dot, as you'd expect. Here on the elevation and windage knobs, each click is going to be half MOA, so roughly half an inch at 100 yards. And the clicks there with a screwdriver or the rim of a case are very crisp, very tactile. You know you're moving it when you do so. So I do like that. We do have the large objective lens here, and then towards the rear it's a little bit smaller, but when you look through it, you really don't notice that. I know a lot of people say that they think the field of view is better with an MRO. That may be the case if you're shooting with one eye closed, but if you have both eyes open, you really won't notice it. You'll be able to see everything just fine. The optic has 8 different illumination settings. We have the off setting that you guys see here, and then the first 2 settings there are going to be for night vision. So when you turn those on and you don't see anything, that's okay. It's perfectly normal. Then we have our low settings here, which is the 1 and the 2. If you're using it in low light without a weapon light, you'll be able to pick those up with your naked eye. However, we do have the in-between off setting there, and I think most guys are going to use this either out in the field or in their home between the 3 and 4 setting. Me personally, I would keep it on the 3 setting if I wasn't using a weapon light. If I'm using a weapon light, I bump it over to the 4. It just makes it a little bit easier to distinguish when you actually hit that light, in my opinion. And then if you're out in freaky bright sunlight, I guess, you can turn it up to 6. Although I've been out in really bright sunlight with this, I've never had any inkling to do so. You guys can see there, looking through it, one thing that's a little bit different versus the original MRO, and I guess we'll get into that while we're on the subject, is I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but there's definitely less blue tint with the new one than there was here with the original. That's definitely something that Trijicon has changed. And just getting into the changes there, for those that don't know, if you look at your serial numbers, the ones that were made after about the 90,000 serial number range have some changes, and a lot of people on the internet will refer to them as Gen 2 MROs. There's no official designation from Trijicon, but there are some differences. One of the differences is that they changed that blue tint. This is an original one here from 2015. And then this, again, is from this year, 2018. You'll also note as you look at the back of them here that there's a little bit of a difference. It's beefed up around the rear lens, and that actually adds a little bit of weight to it. I think it's a couple grams versus the original one. It's nothing you'll ever notice, though, in my opinion. And then this one here, the original one, a lot of people would say that it has a little bit of magnification, and I would say that that's true if you're looking for it. Really only if you're looking for it. If you're just using it, I never noticed it using it in the field, but when people brought it up, I looked at it, and yeah, it did have a little bit of magnification. It's true, it was like 1.05 magnification or something like that. So those are the differences. You can also see one easy way to tell if you're not looking at the serial number is that the actual little trademark there next to the MRO has been changed as it's printed there on the side of the Optic. I'm sure there's some folks viewing this video that have never seen the MRO in person. So one optic that I'm sure a lot of you have seen, though, is the Aimpoint PRO. This is the patrol rifle optic. It's been around for over a decade from Aimpoint. It's a very proven optic, and for years was kind of like the king of, I don't want to spend $900 on a red dot, however I want one that I can leave on and trust with my life kind of thing. And the Aimpoint PRO really filled that role for years and was, again, the king of it. That was really challenged with the MRO when it came out a few years ago, for sure. And then one of the big differences, of course, just looking at it, is the size. So the size on this sucker here is much larger than the MRO. It, of course, also weighs a good bit more. And I think a lot of AR guys in particular are really going to like the smaller signature and the low weight here of the MRO. We've covered most of the details of the optic so far. One thing I want to talk about, though, that's critically important if you're deciding on a green or a red MRO is battery life. So Trijicon quotes the battery life as over 1 year if you leave it on setting 3. And like I talked about earlier, I think some people will leave it on setting 3. Again, I had mine on setting 4 for the last 6 months, and literally 2 days ago, it started blinking, indicating that the battery was low. So the good news there is that it blinks and lets you know the battery's low. The bad news there is that it was at 6 months that it did that. Now, this optic's been out in like really high heat a good bit of time. So really high heat and really low temperatures, really, extreme cold will reduce battery life for any optic. So taking that into account, maybe 7 or 8 months you could expect if you were leaving it at room temperature on setting 4. So that's a big difference versus the red MRO, right? I have one from 2015 that I've left on setting 4 since 2015, and it still has the original battery in there, and it's still on. It's the one you guys just saw here during the comparison. So again, one of the big attractions to the MRO initially, just like the Aimpoint PRO, is that you could just leave it on, and whenever you needed it, you can bring that rifle up and that dot will be on. So that's a huge thing. And myself personally, what I do is every New Year's I go around and change all the batteries and all of my weapon lights that are used for duty and all of my optics that are used for duty or home defense or carry or whatever the case may be. With this, you'd probably have to do it every 6 months. Is it a huge deal? Maybe. It might be for you, it might not be for you. It's just something to consider. And I know some of you guys also turn your optics off when you're not using them, so if that's the case, it's probably less of an issue. So just something to consider there. In terms of battery life, it's kind of a big deal. Additional differences is going to be cost. I think the MSRP on these is like $34 more than the red. And then street price, of course, I don't really see much difference out there. I was looking around today, and most places would list this for about $425. If you follow me on Facebook, you'll see the codes that I put out, and you can generally get it for cheaper than that if you're looking for just the optic. And then, of course, with different mounts, the prices will vary, but not a ton of difference out there in terms of price when it hits the street. Just a couple in terms of MSRP. So overall, what do I think of it? Well, it's like any MRO that I've tested so far, and this is my third. They've not had a single issue. They're bomb-proof. I've dropped rifles with MROs on them before. No issues losing zero. Everything's solid. There's a ton of aftermarket support for them if you're looking for mounts, whether it be for ARs, for AKs, for any number of weapon systems. If you want low mounts, high mounts, they're all out there, and they're all pretty good. This one here is a Trijicon factory QD mount. It's been solid. It's returned to zero, at least as best as I can shoot anyway. I can't tell a difference. So all in all, the MROs are a solid choice in my opinion, for sure. It's 100% made in America, which is not the case for most optics that you're going to be able to turn on and leave on. That's true for the Aimpoints as well. In that they are not made in America. So for folks who want an American-made optic, MRO is a great choice. Now, green or red, that's up to you. I've armed you guys with the information that I can give you, and it's up to you to make that choice at this point. But if you guys have any questions about the optic that I didn't cover here in this video, you can always post those down below in the comments section. However, the best place to get in touch with me if you actually need an answer is over at my Facebook page. I try to respond to every message I get there, and I do respond to everyone that I see, and I get, you know, a couple thousand a day. So I'm over there and I'm working it. So if you guys have questions, I will get to you within a couple days. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, if you like what you see here, please hit the like button, share the video, tell your friends, let them know what we're doing here at the Mr. Guns and Gear channel. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.